Emily, you made a film a few years back with some of your friends.
Yep.
What did you learn from the experience?
Oh, there are so many lessons that I took away from the experience of making Like the Water. There were a couple of things that were really clear to me. So we made the film at this sort of watershed moment in the industry, which was when we started sort of telling people about the movie, and when we finished shooting, which by the way was from February 2011 to August 2011. So I learned, don't try to make a feature just from idea to finish in 8 months. That's one of the things I learned. But from that period of 2011, the way that you could write a business plan fundamentally changed. So it wasn't just that we learned that, oh, I don't know, if you're making an independent drama starring all women with no sex and no relationships, nobody will fund that movie. That's one of the things that I learned. Another thing that I learned was that the business was going to change really rapidly for a while. So when we started, you could write things about in your business plan about potential theatrical releases and the distributors who might pick you up at which kinds of festivals. And by the end of the time we had finished shooting, new things had popped up, like Ultra VOD releases, and day and date had become a much bigger part of the discussion, and no theatrical release at all direct to consumer was becoming more and more popular, partially out of necessity. And then in the time subsequent to that, while we were finishing the film and thinking about going on the festival circuit, is when I would learn, number one, just how difficult it is if you're waiting to be picked out of the crowd by the big festival or by the big distributor to be part of the 0.004% for whom that happens. Right? That's one thing. And I'm totally willing to assume that I might be in the 99.96% or 996%. And so we needed to build better business models in order to get our films made if we wanted to continue making them as something other than a hobby. So that was really like the whole process just served to teach me that the business is in this huge transition at that moment, and continues to be in transition and will continue to be in transition for some time. And so uncertainty was going to be, tumultuous uncertainty was going to be kind of the steady state of the business for the next foreseeable future.
At what point did you say, I'm not in the mood to make another film, knowing how things are, knowing some of the battles that I might face with the next one, but I have another idea? So we finished shooting Like the Water in August of 2011, and we went immediately into post. I wish actually we had taken a little bit of a breather and kind of, checked back in with, because the editing process, you always get lost in the forest for the trees. And while the director was in the editing room and she was quite lost in the forest for the trees, I was out trying to figure out what were the next steps for the film. I went to AFM for the first time, which is my least favorite place on the planet. And I'm gonna get in trouble for saying that, but whatever. Sometime around when I started learning about how you have a film, you get it into a festival, usually because a sales agent has helped you, or the sales agent picks you up at the festival and the sales agent helps you sell it to a distributor, and the distributor helps you package it and, actually spends your money to package it for the exhibitor and market it to an audience. And then the exhibitor collects the money that your audience spends on your movie, and they take a cut, and the distributor takes a cut plus everything that they spent to do all that stuff, and then the sales agent takes a cut, and by the time it gets back to you, there's no money left. None. I have friends who had films get picked up at Sundance by the distributors that you hope to get picked up by, and they made $0 on it. And I was like, well, that's not sustainable. Like, for whom is that sustainable? So that was really the point that I thought, well, there's an interesting thing that happened when we made Like the Water, which was we knew, because we weren't going to get traditional financing, that we had to reach out to our community. And we reached out to them with a clear story. And the first part of that story was, here's why we think we need to make this movie now, and what it means to us personally to do this, and two, actually it's three things, two, what we think it might mean to women filmmakers, to women in general, to the representation, better representation in film. And then the third piece was, and here is every specific thing we need to make this movie. And what happened was when we went out with this list, we call it the original wish list, which was just a list that we typed into our WordPress website. We put a little PayPal link in the bottom. When people could see exactly what their contribution to the film was, the car rental, the sunscreen, the bug spray, which was really important if you're shooting in Maine in the summer, get bug spray. People tended to contribute more than we had thought, and then they started loaning us stuff we hadn't considered. And they started loaning us locations and goods and services that we didn't think we could get, and they took our tiny little, $85,000 movie and made it look much bigger and much fancier. I mean, we look for the locations that were loaned to us like a $5 million movie, and those were all loaned to us. It made our film better because we had this early interaction with our audience. And then as we continued into the festival circuit, no matter where our film screened anywhere in the world, and I'm including Oaxaca and Romania and Memphis, was it Memphis, Tennessee? No, somewhere in Mississippi, and obviously in Maine where we shot it, somebody who contributed to that campaign or somebody who knew somebody who did showed up. And when we did screenings for our community, we had lines down the block and around the corner. We could sell out a 350-seat theater. And this is for a tiny, independent drama about grief, starring only women, mostly unknown actors, right? And so at that moment when I saw kind of the wreckage of the business model that indie filmmakers, even in the best case scenario, were being promised, and this incredible investment from the audience that was created out of this wish list model, and this was at the end of 2011, I was like, maybe there's something in there. And that's when I really started exploring it. And it was another sort of 6 months until it was fully ideated as this sort of one-stop shop crowdfunding and distribution. And obviously in the last 2 years, we have iterated on the idea quite a bit because we've gotten so much feedback from the community, and they've been so incredibly vocal about, no, this is the next thing we need. And we're like, okay, we'll try to get you that,
When it comes to crowdfunding, where do you see most filmmakers failing?
Okay, it's way easier to fail at a crowdfunding campaign than it is to succeed. And I think we are finally moving away from this idea that if you build it, they will come. A crowdfunding platform is not going to make you succeed. So we have the highest success rate in the business. We have a near 80% campaign success rate. And that's because we spend several stages of feedback with our filmmakers before we say, yes, we think you're ready to crowdfund. Just like making a film, your crowdfunding campaign, generally speaking, is won or lost in the pre-production, and then your ability to execute on the plan you put together in the pre-production. The other thing is that the word crowdfunding is a compound word. There are two words in that word, and the first word is not there because it's a prettier word, it's there because it's the more important word. You cannot get funding if you do not already have the crowd. So filmmakers often make the mistake, and actually people in general in crowdfunding make the mistake that your crowdfunding is where you do your audience building. No. Crowdfunding is a phase, and it's not the first phase, of audience building that you are doing throughout your entire career, right? So you have to be able to prove through message testing, which is something that we teach, basically interacting with your crowd a lot to figure out what they like and what they don't like. You have to prove to yourself that you can get total strangers to click on the stuff that you are offering before you should ever launch a crowdfunding campaign. Otherwise, you're going to stay inside just your friends and family, right? So I think a common misperception is that, oh, it's the crowdfunding platform's job to find the non-friends and family. And I can tell you that landing on the homepage of even the biggest crowdfunding platforms, on average, filmmakers see only a 4% bump in their and this is true for us as well, like landing on the homepage doesn't get you a ginormous bump in strangers. You get yourself to your audience. And I think the primacy of the platform is actually kind of problematic insofar as, they think, oh, if I go on one of the big platforms, that's where all the strangers will find me. No, you have to find the strangers and tell them where you are. That's actually how crowdfunding really succeeds. And the way that you do that is you get really, really specific about who your audience is, where they hang out, and how they like to be talked to, and therefore how you reach them.
Let's go back to this like field of dreams type.
The biggest lie that was ever told us. Yeah.
Okay, so there seems to be this prevailing myth that exists that filmmakers can build an audience using social media and make a living. Where, though, does this audience come from if they don't even have a film yet? They say, well, get that audience going, then start making your film, include them in the process. But at this point, there's so many people doing it. Do you think that that's real? Do you think people can not everybody's Kevin Smith, not everybody's Louis C.K. who can just put up a PayPal thing and get donations.
Let's be really clear about the Louis C.K. correlation. Louis C.K. is an overnight sensation 20 years in the making. Louis C.K. decided he didn't want anybody to intermediate his career, and therefore, from the very beginning, he was building a direct relationship with his audience, right? His ability to now sell out of his own website came from a 20-year dedication, and he turned down money that he could have taken when he could have taken a deal where sort of somebody else was responsible for the audience, and kept his career smaller for a while because he wanted the direct relationship. He wanted to own the pipeline the whole time. That takes a tremendous amount of integrity and hard work and a real desire for independence. And the fact is, not everybody actually wants an independent career. I would just like us to stop treating independent filmmaking as the calling card to the studio system. I don't think that's what it is, because that's not independent. If you want to build an independent career, you absolutely have to dedicate yourself to actively engaging your audience. Who is your audience? Well, I like to start here, right? We do this in the class that we teach all over the country, which is we ask someone in the audience to give us the log line and short synopsis of the film that they're thinking of crowdfunding. And they give the brief synopsis, and I look around to the crowd and I say, who else in here would be interested in seeing that? And without fail, 10 hands go up, and those people don't look the same, they don't belong to the same demographic. And I say, okay, now I want you to ask these people, where do you hang out online? What times of day are you online on those platforms? What kind of news do you look at? What kind of music do you listen to? What kind of blogs do you read, if any blogs? What do you do in your free time? Do you belong to any organizations, any alumni groups? Where'd you go to school? What makes you click when you click? And most importantly, where do you watch stuff when you watch it? So the information that you start to gather there lets you get really specific about how to spend your energy. Because where do you get most of your recommendations for film? From your friends, right? So you always start with the core group of people who are actively interested in seeking out new content, that are actively interested in seeking out the kinds of things that you're making, and you turn them into amplifiers over time. But it starts by joining the conversation. And you know what? It might mean we can't make meaningless drivel anymore. It might mean that we actually have to make stuff that busts through the doors and says, I have arrived. Do you know what I mean? All of this year's breakout performance films at the Gotham Awards, I think all of them were crowdfunded. And It Felt Like Love and Dear White People and A Girl Walks Home Alone at Night, those are movies that literally kicked the doors open and said, I am here and you have never seen anything like me. So I think it has to come from a deep desire for independence, hard work, and patience. And there's a video that's been circulating that some big comedians like Reggie Watts and stuff got involved with that said they want a no funding platform called Work Harder. And I actually, while it was very funny, it really misunderstands what it takes to successfully crowdfund. And let me be clear, if you are a film artist, you are always crowdfunding. All of your funding, no matter whether it's people buying tickets at the box office or downloading your movie or giving you $25 to get your film off the ground in the earlier stages, it's all crowdfunding. And it all takes the same tools of identifying that audience, activating them, getting them excited, getting them to tell their friends at every stage of your film career. So crowdfunding has popped up as this word of the thing that we've needed to be doing all along, right? We've just figured out a way to to actually make money marketing our films before we've even made them.
I was in the store the other day and I literally heard this conversation. A woman was talking to her friend and she said, I just need to get on blank, which was a crowdfunding platform, and find all these rich people that want to donate to these indie films. I know they're there and they're waiting. And I was like, wow, this is so good. And I was trying to listen to more and then they passed by and I couldn't hear anything more. But I see that idea out there and I see hashtag support indie film, and that's great, but that's a bunch of indie filmmakers they're all seeing that hashtag.
Yeah.
So who are those people waiting to donate to these campaigns? Are they people that are interested in a niche that the film is about? If the film is about a group of women, let's say, where there's no relationships, no sex, but they're all maybe friends and they're struggling with their own issues, is that the demographic for that film? Or is it a bunch of people that have all this disposable income that just can't wait to hashtag support indie film?
I don't think there are that many people out there desperately waiting to throw their money at indie film. The people of means who I know who contribute to indie film do it in a very savvy way as investors. And if you are going to approach an investor, right, which is different from approaching a crowdfunding audience. If you're going to approach an investor with a plan for success as a reason why they should give you a bunch of their disposable income, you have to show them demonstrably that you can make money on the film. The only way that you can ever demonstrably show that you can make money on a film is by proving that you have access to the audience that wants to see this film. If your business plan says, I'm going to go to a big festival that I haven't gotten into yet and get picked up by a distributor for whom, who picks up 1 or 2 titles out of festivals a year, and that's my path to access to audience, most savvy independent film investors at this point are saying, give me a break. So the whole conversation has shifted. You can't even, sure, you could present that, I'm gonna go to a big festival and I'm gonna get picked up by a big distributor business plan to people who've never invested in film before, and you can tell them a lie that you're gonna make money this way, or you can do the work to build the audience, tell them the truth, and make sure that when they invest in this film, they make their money back so they invest in your next film. Like, the thing about crowdfunding and about gathering investment for film in general is that we all have a responsibility to one another. We have a responsibility to do successful crowdfunding campaigns so that everybody who touches crowdfunding has a great experience. We have a responsibility to pay our investors back so those investors will not only invest in our films but other people's films. I think we're, too long we have been like, I just need to hit people in their pocketbooks. No, you have to hit them in their hearts. That's why most independent film investors invest, actually. Even the ones who make money regularly invest because it really touches them and moves them. And certainly crowdfunding campaigns are won and lost by reaching the people who give a shit. Can I say that?
Sure. Yeah.
Great. Crowdfunding campaigns are won and lost by reaching the people who give a shit about what you are talking about. They're segmented, right? There's the people who give a shit that a group of women are making a movie together, right? Because they care about women in media. There's the segment of people who feel like, women's friendships are not accurately represented on screen, and that's why they might have contributed to Like the Water. And then there's the group of people who are really interested in delving into stories about grief. Those are harder people to reach. Like, this is why raising money for drama is difficult in the first place, because like getting people to out themselves about difficult subject matter can be complicated. But it's not like your audience has one quality or can be spoken to in one way or can be reached on a single platform. And that's why it is on you as the producer or whatever filmmaking team you have to know enough about your audiences and their proclivities in order to reach them. So there's no platform that's going to do this work for you, because they can't. They fundamentally can't. There's no platform that has the resources to do all the research that it takes. And fundamentally, that audience should belong to you, not just for a single film, but for your next film and the one after and the one after.
So for Like the Water, how did you build that audience? Because it was 2011.
Oh, so boy, if I knew then what I know now, how I would have done everything differently. We largely, for Like the Water, relied upon the strength of our personal networks. But we had 6 women pushing this campaign, not on a crowdfunding site. We had 6 women out there telling the story about what it would take us to make this film and why we deeply wanted to do it. And the fortunate thing is that with 6 women, we were reaching into 6 different cities, and then a 7th, which is New York, and an 8th, which was Los Angeles, because that's sort of where our networks were. And we were telling this story really passionately and really concisely, and we knew nothing about crowdfunding. Like, we were literally making it up as we went along. But the wish list really helped us articulate, this is not about you giving us money. This is about the community coming together to sort of acquire the stuff that it will take to bring this story to life. And what happened? Well, those people ended up also being our extras. And as we moved into the small town where we were shooting, we got a local car dealership involved, and a coffee shop involved, and the fire department involved, and the police department involved, and all of these community folks sort of rallied around it because we had a really clear way to articulate our story. And we took a lot of lessons away from that and built them into SEED&SPARK, but I can't lie and say this was foresight, right? Like, the things that I'm telling you now are all things that I learned by doing and failing or not failing along the way. I guess not failing would be succeeding along the way.
I can see how however many women, 6, 7, 8, 9 women, would all have their own, quote, network and friends and family, and then going to this small town and people become very invested in you and your project. Let's take a filmmaker that lives in a big city and they're starting from scratch. And they've got this great idea and they're gonna launch a Twitter and it's gonna be about the film. What are they tweeting about? Because the film hasn't even been made yet.
So the cool thing about what we call message testing, which is kind of building the relationship with your audience and learning how they like to be spoken to, is that you can start with all of the stuff that you do anyway. You're reading articles for inspiration, you're doing research, you're finding photos, you're finding reference materials, and you can start to, and you're also looking, certainly in documentary, you're like looking for people to talk to as part of your research. In narrative, you might be going out and researching certain situations, or going to a coffee shop and watching people or whatever. I think Dear White People is a great example. Justin wanted to learn about the voice of this main character and how people would react to this voice of this radio disc jockey who has a show called Dear White People. So he started the Dear White People Twitter handle and he started tweeting things that he thought she might say, and that helped actually structure his screenplay, right? And so it was part of his own internal research that he was externalizing, and people, it was a sensation, right? And so I think you take the things that are already happening as a part of your world of inspiration and you are sharing it with the community and you're asking people about it. You might be asking specific people. This is the beauty of Twitter, is you can kind of get to anyone, and you can go out and ask specific people specific questions along the way. And you see filmmakers who are really good at building audiences. Ed Burns, while he's writing, he's communicating with his Twitter followers like, what should I name this character? And you're getting people invested in the storytelling all along. It always starts with your own personal network, and I have to be honest, if you're going to be an independent filmmaker, you better be a nice, helpful, collaborative person. You have to build your social capital to live in this world. It's very, very difficult to make an independent film entirely by yourself. And generally speaking, the best ones come from really awesome, bold collaborations. At least that has been my experience. So the way that you are in the world is part of this. Go out and meet people at places. Talk about the things that you're doing and the things that you're thinking about. Volunteer on a couple of your friends' sets. Build some relationships. Offer to do social media on your friend's set so you're helping them build their audience. Altruism is a tremendous way to build a following. If you just started a Twitter account that was entirely dedicated to recommending films that you thought were really excellent to people you thought might really like them, you will immediately gather a following. And that might be something you like to do. Authenticity is a really important piece of this. If you're not a smiley face, happy exclamation pointy person, don't be that person on social media because you'll hate yourself and you'll stop doing it, right? Find your niche. My friend Caitlin was saying the other day, Twitter just doesn't do it for her. She can't quite, she is a wordsmith. Actually, she's a brilliant writer, but not in 140 characters. She feels very limited, but she loves taking photographs. So Instagram has been the place where she's really found her kind of social media tone, and she feels comfortable with that level of interaction. And she learns a lot about what people like and don't like along the way. And that, I know, affects her as an artist as she develops, her next script. Did that answer your question?
It did. We threw the name Ed Burns in there, which I think gets put in all the time, and that's nothing against him. He's a brilliant filmmaker,
I think
but not everybody's Ed Burns, and
Sure.
I get that.
I think it's important to look at people who are good at it. And you can't point at it. There are lots of famous people who do not have a rabid following like Ed Burns, and that the difference is Ed Burns is good at Twitter and they are not. There are plenty of famous people who have attempted and failed at crowdfunding because they don't understand that they have to have a relationship with their audience that matters. Spike Lee's campaign almost did not succeed at first because his initial crowdfunding pitch was lousy and ignored what it would take to get his fans, who he had been interacting with for a long time, to convert to crowdfunding supporters. He didn't understand what it took. He altered his pitch video partway through his campaign, and that's when it really stepped up and succeeded, right? He got schooled by his fans on crowdfunding.
Right.
And I think that's really important, is that the crowd is going to make you a more attentive, empathic artist, ultimately. Because you're expanding the empathic space for inspiration. You never know what tweet might come at you, what offer might come to you that will change the course of your script. I mean, for Like the Water anyway, it was these spaces that were new ways to describe our story, that we rewrote the script to accommodate. And so if you don't like the Ed Burns example, then I will go back to the Justin Simien Dear White People example.
I like that one.
He was not famous to start.
Sure.
He just had a really funny, engaging Twitter account that was based on him wanting to inspire himself, right? And seeking inspiration from the audience. I'll tell you what, I hate it when I have to have the conversation with filmmakers or artists in general who are like, but that's pandering to the audience. And the problem that I have with that statement on its face is that if you think you can pander to an audience, that means you think your audience is stupid. And the logical extension of that is if your audience is stupid, then your movies are stupid, right? Stupid audiences would like a stupid movie, right? So I think it behooves us all to assume that our audiences, the ones that we're seeking, the ones that we're building, the ones that we're interacting with, are at least as smart as we think we are.
Biggest mistake you see in crowdfunding pitch videos?
Oh God, I'm gonna make a whole blooper reel of the worst things you see in crowdfunding pitch videos because it's so common, it's actually really comical. I don't know who wrote the handbook and disseminated it behind my back that says the first thing that happens in a crowdfunding pitch video is you should sit in front of the camera and talk at people. Like we are in a a visual medium, and we're always told in our scripts and in our films to show, not tell, and then we do a crowdfunding pitch video and all we do is tell. So here's my favorite crowdfunding pitch video blooper, right? Hi, my name is Emily Best. I'm gonna actually do it this way. Hi, my name is Emily Best, and if this were really one, I would have bad sound right now. So I have lousy sound. Hi, my name is Emily Best. I'm the writer, director, lead actor, and producer of Danger in Downtown LA. Danger in Downtown LA is a terrifying thriller starring me, a woman. That's like not totally typical. And we have this incredible script and this amazing cast of people who you will meet and talk to in a minute. I really want you to get a sense of like what the film is gonna feel like. So here's our cinematographer who's going to talk to you about why this is going to be a good film. And then you're gonna talk to the cinematographer for a little bit, and then you'll talk to a couple of the actors, and then you'll come back and they'll be like, so, you know, we're totally broke, you know, indie filmmaking, we don't have any money, we really need your money, that's the most important thing that we could ask of you, so donate now. And thanks, bye, we're gonna make a really scary film for you.
I've seen that video.
We've all seen this video, and they're like, I think it's good. I'm like, by what standard? If your movie is, okay, I have so many things to say about it. First, if you put nothing else on the internet, put this on the internet. Do not ask for help with a donation. Because by and large, unless you are backed by a 501c3, asking for a donation is factually incorrect, right? The tone of your campaign should be asking someone to join what you are offering with a contribution. That means you are making a contribution and they are making a contribution, and together you're going to make something magnificent, okay? That tone has to permeate everything in your crowdfunding campaign. I am offering you such a kick-ass opportunity to join this thing that's gonna be so exciting. Strap on your seatbelts, this rocket is taking off, let's do this together. Like, you be the fuel, I'll be the rocket and you be the fuel, right? That's kind of what we're talking about. So the first thing is, if you are going to make a film, let's say called Danger in Downtown LA, I don't know if that film exists, but I'm making one up for these purposes. For no money at all, you could take this lovely Canon 5D or even your iPhone and make it feel found footage-y. And now this neighborhood gets very dark at night and the lighting is very weird. And now I'm over the shoulder of a woman, I can tell because her breathing is deep. And we're walking down and it's an alleyway and it's kind of unsteady. And you hear something and it seems like maybe somebody's just run behind you and you turn around and there's nothing there. And then you turn back and the music kind of comes in. You can find tons of free, creepy music out there. If you have a friend with a keyboard, they can create something for you. And then all of a sudden there's a crash and a smash and the woman and the camera are down on the ground and the breathing is heavy and you don't know what happens and hi, my name is Emily Best. That was the first little snippet of Danger in Downtown LA. We have an incredible cast and crew lined up. I want to show you first what our cinematographer is capable of. And then you spend, 12 or 15 seconds with all of the cool other stuff that your cinematographer has done, and maybe a cut of a few things that your actors have been in if you don't have time to shoot something sort of native. There is the whole point is that if you're going to make a small movie, a pitch video, 90 seconds usually, about why somebody should get involved with this much longer movie you're proposing to make, your small movie has to be good and in the tone and demonstrate that you are capable of making the thing that you are promising on the long run. And if you can't make a 90-second video basically for free that gets people super excited, maybe you shouldn't be making the longer movie. Sorry.
Let's talk about excellent campaign video, blows you away, gets you to donate, the campaign goes nowhere. 31 days expire, whatever the length, you look at it and it's this depressing amount and you're like, how is this possible?
That will all be in the outreach. So if you have a really fantastic crowdfunding video and it's pulling at people's heartstrings, the only reason they're not contributing, well, I'll say this, Number one is maybe that's a fantastic pitch video by someone's standards, but not by the standards of the audience that are actually there for the movie. So there's that piece. But if it really is like an exceptional crowdfunding video, I've never seen an exceptional crowdfunding video. No, one time I did. Actually, one time on SEED&SPARK, probably still the best crowdfunding video I've ever seen in my life. And the campaign went nowhere, and that's because they did zero outreach and nobody saw it, right? So you can't just make an excellent crowdfunding video and put it on a website and hope that somebody sees it. It is your responsibility on any platform to drive traffic, and you start with your friends and family. That's your first 20 or 30% in. Why? Because strangers like to pick a winner. They need to see momentum, and they need to see inevitability of success, right? So you can demonstrate the inevitability of success by making a kick-ass crowdfunding video. The momentum you have to generate from your community first, which is why it's a really good idea to build a crowd. So you're not just going to your friends and family, but your immediate community is already people who are like, yeah, I want to see this thing, right? So that by the time you launch your campaign, you're not just limited to your mom, dad, uncle, and like a couple of your brother's banker friends.
So that immediate crowd, again, was those people that got involved with the process of it.
Yeah.
When you launched, let's say, your Twitter or your Instagram, whatever called
Yep.
to you most, and saw your whatever tweets about a similar situation that you're going to do a story about, or
Yeah,
those are the people. Okay.
absolutely.
And then outreach is what?
Outreach has many components. There's direct outreach, and that is everybody that you can reach by email. Oh, I have to start by saying this. So, social media is not a means unto itself or an end unto itself. Social media is a tool for getting people to do stuff. Generally speaking, the highest conversion rate to watching a movie, contributing to a campaign, will come from direct emails. So actually, think about it as concentric circles. The outermost concentric circle is all the people you don't know. That's most of the people. Inside that is everyone you can reach through social media. And you can grow that capacity, right? But it's not entirely reliable. A lot of times it's feed-based or it's algorithm-based. So when you tweet something, it's not guaranteed that 100% of your followers will see it. When you post something on Facebook, God knows how they display it to people. Like that is a secret hidden behind lock and key, even when you pay for it. So social media is good, but thanks to the power of the smartphone, you can reach everybody by email, and if they're really excited to get your emails, they will open them and read them, right? So I never look at social media as like, once I get to 200,000 Facebook followers, I'm done. Because I've seen campaigns with 200,000 Facebook followers fail, right? Getting people to like you on Facebook only proves that you can get people to like you on Facebook, right? If you can get them to like you on Facebook, can you then get them to sign up for a mailing list because you're giving them some sort of reason or incentive to do so? And then once you reach them in their inbox, will they click on the stuff that you send them? This is all easily trackable through all of the tools that are available to us now. It doesn't take a rocket scientist, trust me, because if I can do it, anybody can do it. So what's really important is to be able to increase your direct outreach capacity. So part of the pre-campaign buildup is to try to really grow your email lists primarily. And whether that's because you're doing a ton of outreach through social media and then you're getting people to sign up for your email list, or it's because you're partnering with people who themselves have email lists, organizations, things like that. So the first part of your outreach is direct. How many people can you reach in their inbox, and what is the work it will take to reach all of the people you can conceivably reach in their inboxes? And I would include in direct outreach actually Facebook direct messaging, Twitter direct messaging. You have to be careful with that, because if you just copy and paste to everyone, number one, Facebook will shut you down. And number two, you're likely to kind of insensitively send somebody something that may not be appropriate. Like if you're not paying attention, you might send your crowdfunding campaign to your friend who's like, I just lost my mom, or your friend who's like, I have no money, or whatever. Or that happens to me all the time. I'll get sent a crowdfunding campaign for a film that's crowdfunding on another platform, and I'll be like, bro, do you even read things? Not that I don't contribute on other platforms. I'm just like, did you consider that who I anyway, so it's important to be very sensitive to who you're reaching and gathering all the materials it takes to reach out to them. So you want to like bring all of the message tested language together. The images that seem to have really worked with your audience, the music that seems to have really worked with your audience, the videos that have seemed to really work with your audience, and get the text as concise as possible, because when people open emails, they need to get to the decision-making point quickly, right? The emails that you wait to write until 2 in the morning always end up being the like long ones of why I got into film in the first place, and to be honest, basically nobody but your mom cares. Right? So get to the most concise bullet points of like, why me, why this, why now, why you. Communicate that. Make sure that every time you send an email, it also includes immediately shareable Twitter and Facebook language that you have pre-composed, so you can turn me from my inbox to a social media evangelist with 2 clicks. Let's face it, most people are reading those kinds of emails while they're sitting on the toilet. They got one hand free. If you can help them share stuff with 2 clicks of a thumb, you're going to get them to share stuff, right? So your direct outreach is really about getting people in their inboxes and also turning them into amplifiers, right? That's one phase of outreach. And usually there's like 3 categories of direct outreach for personal outreach. The first is the people you're basically sure are going to contribute to your campaign. Those like immediate friends and family who will support anything that you do. You're going to reach out to them well in advance of launching your campaign. You're going to tell them about what you're up to. You're going to get them to commit to contributing. You're going to find out how much they might be willing to contribute, so you have an idea of where you stand on day 1. That's really important. And if one of them says like, I'm in for $2,000, you're like, great. Can we run a matching campaign in the second week of our campaign to see if we can turn that $2,000 into $4,000 and incentivize people to get involved in the second week of the campaign so you can keep up your momentum? So you're going to get a sense through your direct outreach of what you're going to do on day 1, and maybe there's some options and opportunities in the second and third week of your campaign for bringing those larger contributors in a little later. There's the second set of people who you're like, maybe with a personal email, they will get involved. And you need to really look at how long is that list, and you got to pool the resources of all of your filmmaking team. How long is this list? Because if it's 200 or 300 emails, you're not going to send them all in one day. If you need to send 200 or 300 more or less personalized emails, that's part of the work that you're parsing out for yourself in the campaign. You're organizing, I'm going to commit to sending 10 per day, right? Giving yourself something that you can stick to, as opposed to something you're going to procrastinate on until the last week of your campaign. Then you're going to send a bunch of desperate emails that aren't very effective. They're going to be those long diatribes. Horrible. And then the third category is kind of like everyone you've ever emailed ever that's accruing in your Gmail inbox. And you can create like a MailChimp list and just check in with people and make sure they want to be subscribed to it. And then you can kind of blast them a couple times throughout the campaign, come what may. Right? That's a good way to start your mailing list there. And then any organizational outreach. So anybody who's willing to put you in their newsletter or send you out to stuff, you have to give them the materials they need to succeed as well. The organizational part in the outreach is the most important part. You need to be prepared in advance with not only how you're doing all your direct outreach, but how you're keeping your social media feed fresh. Your Twitter feed while you're crowdfunding can't now devolve into only self-promotional tweets. You need to keep up about a 9-to-1 ratio. And that means you still need to be in the conversation, the ideas around your film, maybe around filmmaking or around the topic of the film that you're making. For Dear White People, for example, it's really easy. You can get into a lot of like interesting comedic takes on race or social justice. They have a sort of a clear conversation they can get involved in. Figuring out what that is and making sure you're still maintaining that takes a plan, right? You have to have either somebody who's doing it or somebody who's researching it, or you do a bunch of research in advance and you say, okay, I think these are the topics we're going to really focus on each week. These are the audiences we're really going to try to reach each week. We're going to focus a lot on Twitter because we know we can reach our like young women interested in social justice there. But actually, like if we really want to get to like the filmmaker crowd, they're actually largely on Instagram. So we're going to do this thing on Instagram for that audience. And then there's the sort of like baby boom generation who's very interested in, you know, seeing versions of themselves as children that they never got, movies that never got made when they were children, and sort of like this sort of nostalgic thing, and they're more reachable on Facebook, right? And so this is going to be our campaign on Facebook. You've got to have a plan for your social media to keep it fresh, keep it interesting. If you're tweeting the same shit in week 4 that you were in week 1, we are bored and probably have unfollowed you, right? So you have to have a plan for that as well. And your updates, that every crowdfunding platform has an update function. It's kind of like a blog, but let me be clear: people don't contribute. Let me be clear: people don't contribute to crowdfunding campaigns to just like subscribe to blogs. The point of your updates is to show progress, to demonstrate further inevitability of success, to keep up the momentum, to bring people deeper into your world, and the content should be visual and shareable in exciting ways. You have to make your updates easily shareable, whether you're using click to tweet or you're pre-composing shareable language. All the time, everything that you're doing should increase the virality of your campaign, the shareability. Virality is dumb because like you can't predict virality. All you can do is try to increase your chances to achieve it.
I want to go back to something that you said regarding figuring out what the initial that concentric circle in the very, very core would be family and friends. What if that's not a high number? Do you still launch a crowdfunding campaign?
So the question is, what do you do if your immediate community isn't that large? And the answer is, you don't try to squeeze blood from a stone. So you can use crowdfunding as a tool to build your community if you do it slowly and responsibly, and you're prepared to deliver on your promises at each phase. So the cool thing that's been happening in crowdfunding is the use of staged financing. And so on SEED&SPARK, for example, you only open one page for your film, and you can do successive crowdfunding campaigns inside that same page and build your funders and followers and accrue an audience in a single place, right? One of the best ways we ever saw this used was a filmmaker named Liam Brady, who had been at NYU Tisch, just head down making movies, becoming an auteur, right? And it was time for him to make his thesis film, and he looked up and the landscape had changed, and he was like, wow, I really want to crowdfund this film, and I have a couple of problems. The first is my community isn't that big right now because I haven't been cultivating it, and I'm a little bit sensitive about going to my friends and family who have kind of helped me fund other movies that I made earlier. Two, I actually don't have the script all the way developed because it's dependent a little bit on casting, but I don't have money to hire a casting director, and how do I really kind of kick it up the next notch? And I need to do readings with actors, but that means I have to get space, and I have to, you know, and I really need some materials to build audiences and get the word out and kind of glad hand a little bit. So he decided to run a $6,000 development campaign for a film called Fog City. And he was going to hire a casting director. He was going to print some marketing materials. He was going to do some like table reads and make sure that he could pay for a space and feed his actors. Imagine that. And then throw a party also to give people a sense of the other work that he's done. To really like offer something to the community to say, here's what I'm here to do. I would really love for you to join me. And he set about this development campaign. He ran a 60-day campaign, which is a long time to crowdfund. And he raised $6,600. He was funded within 30 days because it was a very good crowdfunding video. It was a very successful, he was very dialed in his outreach. And he does all this work. And he does, you know, the $6,600 campaign. He develops the script just as he promised. He keeps the audience updated along the way. And as a result of all of these things he was doing and executing on the promises he made in the first campaign, people approached him from his community and said, I would like to get involved in this film in a more material way. This film really matters to me. And so he did the development he needed. He got it cast as he needed. He knew at that point how much the production would cost him. Like when he ran the development campaign, he didn't even know how much to ask for the full film because it wasn't developed well enough. It was cast dependent and things like that. So he got a fully developed script. He knew how much the cast would cost him. He could price it out. And because these people had approached him and said, I want to get involved in a more meaningful way, he felt confident going out and asking for the full production budget of the film, not the post-production, just the production budget of the film, $33,000. He does a $33,000 campaign less than 5 months before the first campaign, but on the back of this wider community of support that he had built, executing exactly, proving himself trustworthy along the way, building a tremendous amount of social capital, creating evangelists of all the people who had, contributed to this first smaller campaign. He raised $35,000 in 30 days in this second campaign, also because he learned a lot about the way his community wanted to be spoken to. His second pitch video is quite a bit different. It reached out in a different way. But he said very clearly, this is not for post-production. I'm going to crowdfund again for post. So he goes and he shoots the film and he starts editing the film, and 9 months later, when he knows exactly what he needs to get through the full festival submission, post-production music period, he does another 30-day campaign for $6,000, this time making an extraordinarily tongue-in-cheek crowdfunding video, because he'd built up, the film is a drama about a veteran and a baseball team, and it's sort of dark and deep and beautiful. But the pitch video was utterly irreverent, because at this point he had built up such a rapport with his audience that he knew how he could speak to them without sort of futzing with the tone of the film or the gravitas of the campaign. Raised $6,000 by himself in his sleep, only because he had done all of this work in advance, and that got him to $57,000 for a short film that was his NYU thesis film, which is now out, submitted to festivals.
So question, when he did his initial outreach for the 6,000 plus in the very beginning, and he'd had his head down, he'd been busy with classes, what was the outreach? Because did he go on social media?
Oh yeah,
okay,
no,
so
he spent 2 months, 3 months on social media in advance, making sure that everybody he knew that this was coming down the pipeline. Nobody was surprised. They're like, Liam launching a crowdfunding campaign? No, everybody knew this was coming, right? The second piece of it is a tremendous amount of email outreach, reconnecting with people he hadn't been connecting with. He moved back to San Francisco from New York during this time and reconnected with the Film Society community and went to events and met filmmakers in his community and learned who he would need to outreach to there. There was a lot of in-person outreach that he was doing in the months in advance of his campaign.
I see. Okay, so it wasn't just, you know what, this is the dollar amount I need for the beginning, and I'm going to launch the Twitter now, and I'm going to do the Instagram. He started it well in advance.
Oh yeah,
he kept people updated.
You can't start your relationship with your audience by asking them for money. That's absurd on its face. You have to start by getting them really excited about what you're going to offer them if only you have the resources. And that's a process. This isn't a light switch you can flip on. It just isn't. And I don't feel sorry to say that to people. It's like the people you see like Louis C.K. and Ed Burns, who are gloriously benefiting from the direct relationship they have with their audience, that's something that they took the time, energy, and intention to cultivate, right? Long before they, were stars of stage and screen. Actually, Ed Burns told me that it was Ted Hope who sat him down and was like, dude, if your career's in a slump, you need a Twitter account.
That's cool.
So, it also isn't necessarily true that, your fame will carry you. Or we just have to get out of this universe of somebody's going to hand it to me or somebody's going to pick me. No, you have to go and pick them. You have to go and pick your audience one by one and tell them why they should join your journey. That's the work. That's the work.
Emily, in one of your videos, I think you've said that raising money for the movie is the easy part.
No, that's not what I said.
Well, it's getting people to see the film that's the hard part.
People think raising money is the hardest part. It's not. Getting anyone to see your film when it's finished is way harder.
Okay. Well, we've spoken to filmmakers who spent 3 years, 5 years, 10 years or more raising money for their films. How can distribution be harder than that?
Well, okay. So that's a loaded question, right? Because if you're going through traditional financing methods, those are incredibly dependent upon cast and director and the lead investor, and then somebody gets burned and they pull out and all that stuff. At the $3 to $5 million level, which is still something that crowdfunding doesn't regularly achieve, it's hard for a separate set of reasons than, like that part of financing is hard for sort of a separate set of reasons. The reason distribution is harder is that the powers that be that will reach down and sort of offer you distribution only do it to 0.04% of the films that are made every year, right? So you have to do it yourself. And for the most part, we have not been given good information. We don't have great data out there to help us build smart business models. We're still learning about all the tools that are available to us. There's a tremendous amount of misinformation. There's a lot of bad actors out there that will tell you that if you pay them $10,000, they can help you get the distribution deal that will really help you. There are myriad difficulties built inside of distribution, but ultimately, getting enough people to watch your movie is tremendously difficult, and it takes a lot of time and resources, particularly if you think you should be making $5 million films. That's a lot of people buying movie tickets to pay that money back, right? And because audience is built one person at a time.
So I understand that SEED&SPARK is coming up on 2 years.
Yeah.
So congrats.
Yesterday.
And I know you're having a big party for that and fairly soon. Have any of the projects on So made more money on the distribution side than they have on the crowdfunding side?
We don't know yet. So the interesting thing, one of the reasons why we're in such a tumultuous period is it takes a long time to take a movie from beginning all the way to the end. So the films that crowdfunded, the very first films that crowdfunded with us, many of them are only just entering the festival circuit kind of now, because we have these sort of festival seasons.
Sure.
And very few of them have come onto the streaming platform yet. And the other thing is, like, I don't think they're going to make all their money back on our streaming platform, which is why we're building distribution. In 2015, we'll be distributing out as well, because I think our job as the platform is to give filmmakers a chance to, with a successful crowdfunding campaign, guarantee themselves some meaningful distribution beyond a single platform. What we know is that when films are on multiple, particularly digital platforms, when they're on multiple digital platforms, they do better on all platforms, right? So being on a single platform is not a good plan, and we don't constrain them that way at all. It's totally non-exclusive. I'm hoping that in 2015, we will finally get to see the sort of full circuit model play out. But many of our films were waiting to go to festivals. And in the meantime, we're trying to build into our process the meaningful distribution deals that by the time they do come to us, they'll go on our platform, they'll go out to various other platforms and opportunities, and really be able to make money. I will say this, our original idea was extraordinarily idealistic. They'll just crowdfund, and then they'll stream, and they'll make all their money back. It was never gonna be that simple, right? And this is why we've explored these other opportunities for distribution. Because you have to meet your audience where they wanna be. I think it's silly to kind of try to force their hand in a new direction right now, as audiences are feeling this terrible kind of onslaught of platforms and devices and all of these things. And the good thing about having waited is now you have a Chromecast or an Amazon Fire Stick, and anything that's on your laptop is on your TV. It's sort of amazing, but just in a couple of years, whereas we maybe should have built for Roku and Apple and all these things, they just built a stick you plug into your computer, you can stream anything that you're streaming right onto your television. So the nice thing is the technology is making it easier for all of us to be on all devices, and we should try to be on all devices, because Some of your audience is going to consume it on their mobile phone. Get over it. Some of your audience is going to want to consume it on their TV, and that's great. And a lot of your audience is going to be streaming it curled up in their bed on their laptops, which maybe means you don't have to shoot on 6K RAW all the time. I'm just saying. But anyway.
We found this statement on the SEED&SPARK website. If you add up the cable bills, the video streaming subscriptions, and all of the movie tickets sold, Americans spend $120 billion, which calculates to $396 each on video entertainment in 2012. And somewhere between 80 to 90% of that money went to the companies that delivered the content, not to the actual artists that created those films.
Correct.
Where do you see the future of filmmaking and distribution in the next 5 to 10 years? That being said.
So we're already seeing it be massively disintermediated, right? Which means you don't need 3 or 4 gatekeepers in between you and your audience anymore. Thanks to this thing, right? You can reach your audience directly. It has never been true before that the tools that Beyonce and the President of the United States use to reach their audience, you also have in your pocket. Like, I don't think people still have fully comprehended the power in that alone, that the authoring tools that are available to the most famous, most prestigious, and wealthiest are also available to you and me, right? Which is not to say you are not yourself extraordinarily prestigious. I think the disintermediation is tremendous. I also think it will become way more decentralized. So because these tools are available, look, I just spent 35 days, I went to 26 cities, and I met people in Memphis and Houston and South Jordan, Utah, and Bellingham, Washington. And there are filmmakers in all of these places who don't want to move, have no interest of paying the rents that we pay in Los Angeles or that we pay in New York, or even honestly that you pay in Austin, Texas. And they want to make films, and they could make a really good living for themselves at $60,000 a year, right? So if your ambition is not to become rich and famous with filmmaking, but to make the work that's really meaningful to you and get it to an audience to whom it is also really meaningful, I believe that pretty soon we will actually see the rise of a creative middle class in the film industry that is not in New York and LA, because it's too flippin' expensive to live there. But actually, you know, if you could make 5 films a year, one of which is yours, 4 of which are ones that you're working on your friends, and they're $100,000 or $120,000 budgets, some are bigger, some are smaller, you know, you keep yourselves sort of furiously dedicated to making the most excellent versions of the things. You rely on your peers to make you better. You use every technology available to you to make it inexpensively and to connect directly with the audiences to whom it matters along the way. I think we will see filmmakers making a sustainable living. And again, I don't mean getting rich and famous. I do mean maybe making enough money to feed their families and hopefully make little artist babies and make, you know, more empathic people in the world. Yeah, so I think it's the way that everything is going, right? Much more decentralized, much more disintermediated. I think there's some big question marks out there that are a little scary, right? So, you know, we have this question out there about net neutrality, and of course net neutrality would be very bad for a company like Seed. The lack of net neutrality would be very bad for a company like Seed&SPARK. But, you know, Google is out there laying fiber all over the world, and they might effectively create a 2-tier internet if their fiber is way faster than the stuff that's currently available to us through our crappy cable companies, right? And if they effectively create a 2-tier internet just out of like convenience, we have to hope that they really meant it when they said don't be evil, right? That's one piece of it. And I think there are some corporations out there that are creating conglomerates that are putting a lot of pressure on the way that the distribution business can build and grow. I think lack of data is very damaging to us right now. If I could leave behind a legacy that I would be most proud of, it would be in sort of spearheading or joining or encouraging the effort to get companies like Netflix to release the viewership data to the filmmakers, so the filmmakers had any hope of building better business models based on the data that Netflix is collecting. I think it's, at this point, if your user data is your only competitive advantage, you better think about what you're offering to people. So I think it's really, really essential for us to, as filmmakers and artists, demand that we get the most data we can get so we can learn about the audiences, how they view, what it means to them, where they're viewing things to whatever extent we can, so that we can build smarter business models. I think if we continue to sort of beat our head against the wall of like, I'm gonna make a movie for 3 million with stars in it, and I'm gonna take it to a big festival and whatever, we'll have a lot of really disappointed, disenfranchised artists, because a few people will get to do that, and you know, the rest of the folks who are trying to do that will sort of fall by the wayside. I think we have to be highly educated in the tools that are available to us to dominate our independent careers. They are available. Those tools are available. We now have to demand the data. I think that, you know, is an essential component of it. And provided we don't have sort of a tyrant two-tier internet, or we don't lose net neutrality altogether, I think we can rely on the distribution getting, you know, faster, cheaper, better all the time, because that's what the audience demands ultimately, you know.
So this middle class artist, how do you envision them being paid? From, if they're going direct to the consumer, in this theoretical 5 to 10 year landscape, how do you see them?
Well, if they can go direct to consumer, I think there's a proliferation now of platforms who are sharing the lion's share of the revenue directly with the filmmaker. We're 80-20, the filmmakers keep 80, we keep 20. And we're not the only one like that. I think it comes from, disintermediating the distribution funds, right? So not having quite so many people in between you and the money that your audience is spending to see your stuff. I think it comes from working on your friends' projects. I think it's an amalgam of, I work on my friends' movies and everybody gets paid some piece of it, and I make back end on those films and I make back end on my films, because there's back end to be made because we're doing this in a more disintermediated environment. I think it probably comes from brand patronage. I think brands are really waking up to the fact that it's not about branded content. It is about associating your brand with the content that audiences are really excited about. This is another opportunity that's totally opened up to you that you don't have if you don't have the direct relationship to your audience. You have a direct relationship with an audience that a brand is interested in. They will pay you money so that you talk favorably about that brand to your audience. And they're willing to do it in more and more creative ways. So, and we've proven this. I mean, Bright Ideas magazine started because we convinced a brand that we had access to an audience that they wanted to associate with really cool content that they didn't have any say over, that we could associate their name with. Brands are really looking for ways to be prestigious and meaningful. This is the other thing, is like, people think that brand is a bad word, or that brands are sort of inherently selling out. No, in fact, there are lots of brands out there that really want to be a part of this movement to empower artists to make really cool, important, meaningful stuff.
We once had a filmmaker tell us that a distributor literally told them, if you want your money, you're going to have to sue us. And
I know who this distributor is.
He was forced to hire a lawyer to take them to court. So what are your feelings on the current state of distribution for filmmakers?
You know, this is the inherent problem of feeling like you have to hand your film to somebody else to distribute it, is they then have the control over everything between your film and the audience, and all the money that comes back in the other direction. I know so many examples of the distribution deal gone wrong. It's really disheartening, and it is I think, further impetus to taking control of building audiences and reaching audiences into your own hands. I can use Justin Simien as an example again. So good was he at reaching his audience, talking to them, building them, cultivating them, exciting them, that he got hired by the company that distributed his film to make all of this content to keep them excited in between when the film got picked up after Sundance and when it was released in October, right? So he got to make more stuff, right, that he loved. And he was the best person to speak to his audience. And that created a relationship of sort of trust and necessity in a distributor relationship. Now, I don't know all the particulars, like maybe they would say it wasn't all wine and roses, but it certainly looks like it from the outside. I think it is essential to understand that you actually have a responsibility to make your IP valuable, so that the distributors are coming to you and then you get to say, I want that one and not that one, and these are the terms of my deal, because you're the one who's really coming with a relationship to the audience. Something that I think, because we get so excited when somebody wants to pick our movie, do your research. Don't ever work with a company that you haven't fully vetted, no matter how much they're breathing down your neck and saying, this deal expires in 24 hours. It's like, well, then you don't get the movie because I need to find out from the people who've worked with you how it was. I guarantee you this wasn't the first person who worked with this distributor who had a sort of like unseemly relationship, was treated poorly. So I think it's really important. And I actually see this, I'm really excited in my filmmaking community all the time. Somebody will post on Facebook, like, who's worked with Gravitas? What did you think? And I'll write and I'll be like, I love them. I think Mia Bruno is one of the smartest people I've met recently, and I really like the way that she works on things. Or, hey, I'm having this problem with this company. Has anybody else had this problem, and how do you deal with it? So I think this is when you really have to rely on your community, but you just can't escape doing your research, I'm not saying that it was this guy's fault or anything. It's just really important to make sure, to vet anybody that you work with. Don't take the first deal that comes just because it's the first deal. Make sure that it's the right deal.
So due diligence, research on the net, find out, and also ask other people, post on, or maybe if you don't want to go out there publicly with the name, then
then you
direct
send it.
Message someone.
Yeah, you send it. I get these emails as well from friends. Hey, does anybody know anybody here? What did you think of them? What was it like working with them? What's been your experience? Dylan Marchetti from what is now Amplify is one of those people that everybody's like, I love him. And that's really important. That kind of reputation is really important. And the good ones have it, and the bad ones don't. It's that simple.
Right. So how much time should someone research? I mean, don't just take like a couple days and go, I don't see anything here, looks good.
Oh, no,
really take your time with it?
Reach out to filmmakers who've had their films distributed through those distributors and get a hold of them. And don't say yes until you've actually spoken to one of them about your experience. You can get on the internet and see if anybody's ranted, but you might also, people rant about, look, take Yelp. Your favorite restaurant has 25 terrible Yelp reviews, okay? Right. So, not everybody's experience is your own experience. I think it's important to talk to at least a couple of people and really vet your distributors. They're also getting a good deal by getting your film, right? So you can also take the time to make sure it's really smart. And just don't let people pressure you into taking stuff. Trust your gut. Don't work with people who make your skin crawl. That's important. Seriously, just don't work with people who make your skin crawl.